Well, good day to you, good day. It's so nice to see you on this lovely fall day. We are creeping closer and closer to that summit of time when we shall pass from fall into winter. Although the weather around here lately has been a little more like winter than fall. I don't know how things are where you are, but depending where you live around this wonderful globe of ours, I guess you could have everything from tropical weather to perhaps up to your shoulders in snow. But that's not why we've gathered today to talk, and I'm just so pleased that you've joined me once again. Last week I ended by saying I wasn't sure what we'd talk about this week, but our mutual friend, Ian, from your era, has contacted me and said there was a few things I left out last week when talking about the etiquette of a formal dinner party, and asked if I might touch on those. So that's what we will do this week. I've already talked about escorting a lady into the room, holding her chair, wiping your mouth before speaking or before sipping wine or water, whatever the matter may be. Other things I did not touch on. When you are using your knife and fork, as one should when they are dining, and as I said before you pick up your wine glass or water glass or whatever beverage it is you're partaking of, you should wipe your mouth, but you should also set down your cutlery. What I forgot to say is how to go about doing that. One should never place cutlery that has been used onto the table. For several reasons. One is, well, we all know how expensive table linens are. They're grossly overpriced, and to soil one beyond repair would be criminal, to say the least. And also one should consider the poor household staff that has to labor over a washboard and wash tub trying to scrub those stains out. And if they are unsuccessful, then one must replace the tablecloth, and that is, as I just said, rather costly. So out of respect for your host and hostess and their household budget, so to speak, and no matter how wealthy they are, they will still cringe at spending money for things they already have because you were uncareful enough to lay your dirty knife on the cloth and stain it with whatever might be on the knife at the time. So you should always place your knife and fork, or whatever cutlery it is you're using, on the plate. Now, how do you go about this? Because it's not just a matter of just laying them down and no. To be polite, you would place your... I'm going to assume that you're right-handed, and please don't take any offense if you're left-handed. It's perfectly acceptable to be so. You would just reverse what I'm saying. But we'll assume you're right-handed. You would place your fork, which you're holding in your right hand, with the handle at about the 4:30 mark on the clock, if you think of a clock face, and your knife with the handle at about the 7:30 mark. So they would point sort of towards each other. Now, once you've done that, you should also make sure that your fork is placed with the curve of the tines curving down towards the plate. So the points of the tines would be touching the dinner plate. This tells the waitstaff that you are not through eating, that you desire to continue. Now, when you are through eating, whether you've consumed everything on your plate or you're just had your fill, you would place your knife and fork side by side with the handle of each around the 4:30 mark again, and with the tines of the fork pointing upwards. So the curve would curve up and the points would not touch the plate, but rather point towards the ceiling. This is a signal to the waitstaff that you are through eating, and they may remove your plate and cutlery. Now, the same would be true if you have salad before the meal. When you are through with your salad, you would place the fork in the same manner with the tines pointing upward. If you've just paused to speak to the person next to you or across the table, or to take a sip of whatever beverage, again you would place your fork with the tines pointing toward the plate. If you're having soup, well, of course, soup spoons do not have tines, so what do you do with that? Well, If your host and hostess are serving a proper formal meal, your soup bowl should be sitting on a small plate. This is, of course, to catch any drips from the bowl so they don't stain the tablecloth, as we've previously discussed. So if you pause while eating your soup to speak or take a drink, you should place the spoon on the plate next to the bowl. When you are through eating your soup, whether you are done eating altogether and have finished your soup, or whether you've only consumed a part of it because it's not to your taste, or you're full, or whatever it might be, or you're saving room for that excellent dessert you've heard tell is coming, you would leave your spoon in the bowl with the bowl of the spoon pointed down. Now, should you leave it with the bowl pointing up, if there's soup in the bowl, your waitstaff is not going to know because they can't see through the soup unless it's a consommé. So normally you would leave the spoon within the bowl pointing down. That signals the waitstaff that you are through. If you just leave it in the bowl, though, that will also tell them you are more than likely through. So you see what could happen. If you pause to talk to the lovely lady sitting next to you and leave your spoon in the bowl, a young waiter might assume that you are done and remove your bowl, and then you'll go back to eat it and, oh, it's gone. So take your spoon and place it on the plate next to your soup bowl. Now you're saying, well, what do I do if there is no plate under my bowl? Well, in that case, what I would do would be place my spoon in the bowl, but I would gently hold the edge of the bowl with my left hand, or if you're left-handed, with your right hand, just to let the waitstaff know that you're not ready to let go of that delicious soup quite yet. But however, as I say, if your host and hostess are serving a proper formal meal, there should be that small plate. Another rule is you never use any knife but the butter knife, which at a formal meal you will find on your butter plate, which is usually to the upper left of your dinner area, your dining area, and usually the butter knife will be laying diagonally across the plate, and that is the only knife you should use for butter from the main butter dish. It would be extremely rude and uncouth and disgusting, on top of which, to take your dinner knife if you're partway through eating your supper and you've had, let's say, roast beef and gravy, a lovely dish, and so your knife is now soiled with gravy and bits of beef and whatever, and now you stick that knife into the butter dish to help yourself? Well, you know exactly what's going to happen. You're going to leave gravy and bits of beef in the butter for other people to have to look at as it goes around the table. Very unsightly. So be sure to only use your butter knife. Now, speaking of the bread and butter, depending on how the bread is served, it may be slices from a loaf, it may be dinner rolls or whatever, one never picks the roll up and bites directly from the roll. Nor should you use your butter knife to cut the roll. The proper etiquette is to tear small pieces off. You may separate the roll in half with using your fingers. That's the correct way to do it. You would separate it in half, butter the two halves if you desire butter, and then break small pieces off and eat them that way. But never use your knife to cut pieces off, and never pick up the entire roll and bite it like it's an apple. Both are quite indelicate ways of eating your bread and butter. Another thing you should never do with your bread, let's again say you're having roast beef with mashed potatoes and lovely vegetables and a delicious gravy. It is so tempting to take your bread to sop up that leftover gravy on your plate because it's so delicious, but that is very, very rude. So you will just have to suffer and not get those last little drops of gravy that are on your plate. Just leave them there and hope that maybe you'll be invited again for another roast beef and gravy dinner that you can enjoy the delicious gravy once more. But never ever use your bread to sop up or wipe your dinner plate. It is very uncouth. You might find those sorts of manners in a logging camp, but not at a fine formal dining table. Likewise, if soup is served, you may not be able to get every last drop out of the bowl with your spoon. However, if you cannot, leave it. Do not pick up the bowl and drink from it as if it were a cup. You will have everybody else at the table with their mouths hanging open in shock, aghast at your rude behavior. So just eat what you can. Always tip the bowl away from yourself as you get the last drops of soup from the bowl. Why, you ask? Well, if you've ever had hot soup poured into your lap, you'll know why. This way, if you accidentally go too far, the hot soup will run onto the table or onto the plate underneath, away from you and not toward you. So that is the proper etiquette, is to tilt the bowl slightly, lifting the edge nearest to you and using your spoon to get the last drops. Personally, I prefer to just eat what I can with the bowl sitting flat, and if I cannot get it all with my spoon, so be it. Now, you have reached the end of the meal, and you have your napkin in your lap. What do you do with it? You take it off your lap and place it on the table next to your plate. Do not fold it. You should never fold a used napkin. Just simply take it off your lap and lay it on the table next to your plate. And that is a few more tips and details of how to behave and act and consume your meal at a formal dinner party. I hope you found these little tips helpful. What you do at home at your own table in the privacy of your dining room, have at it. Who's going to complain? Your household staff? However, be warned, they may gossip about you behind your back, about what a barbarian you are when supping alone. Well, I'm going to be taking a break. I'm going away for my Christmas holidays, and I don't know how this time travel thing you do works, so I don't know if you'd be able to catch me where I will be or not. So I will be back in January. Now, don't confuse my going away with Ian, the fellow in your time. He intends to continue on with his whatever it is he does. I don't understand your technologies. They're beyond my comprehension. I don't consider myself an ignorant man, but when it comes to things from your time, I must plead ignorance. So please continue to watch our friend Ian as he continues with his, well, as I say, whatever it is he does. But I will see you again in January, the first Friday in January, and I hope you will be able to join me then. And I wish you the happiest and most prosperous 1881. Oh, sorry, I guess that doesn't apply to you. Well, may the new year you are entering be happy and prosperous for you, and may it be a blessed year all around. Until next year in January, when I hope you will return to spend some time with me. I do enjoy these moments. I bid you adieu.